Before I get started, I want to just give you just a brief explanation of our thought process when it comes to reporting. You guys have heard the saying before, give a man a fish, feed him for a day, teach a man how to fish. Reports are like giving a man a fish. Uh, they solve, or at least the reports in SAMIS, they solve a specific need and they don't go beyond that. A lot of times, we shy away from reports because, it's sort of like building a website or decorating a room. It's going to be like, oh, let's move the couch over here. Let's try this painting on this side. And there's a lot of back and forth that really we don't add a lot of value as engineers, right, as software engineers to that. And so we try to stay away from that. So we want to focus more on building tools and apps that give you guys the ability to customize and configure and do things that you want to do. The BI tool is a little bit like that, and I'll show you sort of what we have so far. Just like you have, when you log into your portal, you have a SAMIS tab. You'll have a BI tab very shortly for all of the different partners. And what I'm looking at here is the dashboard view. So the concept is, we'll focus on these three main tabs for right now. Data sources are, that's an area that someone like Terry, or if you have a database administrator like Alfonso in Miami, or John here in Broward, would go in to create these objects or queries that you would look into your data. That's not for an end user. So the developers or database administrators would create those data sources, and then your end users that you give access to would be able to come in and create data sets. So I'm going to work my way a bit backwards here. And so for Broward, you can see here we've got a few different data sources already in place. We may have a simple one like person, where we're really just looking at a person table in the system. We may have others where we have a query that someone wrote. So in this case, it's participants, where we just might have joins or other things in there. End users wouldn't really obviously care about this, but we want those data sources to be defined once. And once we do that, a user with every data source that you create, you can indicate the columns and things that are going to be part of that data source. And in this case, there's quite a few. But at the bottom here, you get to see, what permissions or groups would have access to that. So you can control, and again, like in the portal, you can create as many, groups that you have for users. And the data sources would then be granted permission to one or more groups.
Mario, are these SQL queries that we would build the data sources transferable, to the other databases? So if Duval built one, that we could share that with someone else?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so that was sort of the data source. Really, we think you need to define that once, or every time you have a new need. To me, it would create a data source maybe for the clients or participants that you have, one maybe for units of service, another one maybe for performance measures. And then, an end user can come in and say, okay, I want to create a new data set. And that data set now is where I'm going to be browsing or exploring that data and looking at it in different ways. So for example, if I wanted to see, for example, participants and just, viewing the raw data, I can just hit that. It's going to search through and give me, all of the participants that are in the system, and I can browse through that. I can add filters or anything else that I need to be able to perform that. But, let's say I wanted to say, I don't want to look at raw data. Maybe I want to look at a pivot table or a bar chart or anything else like that. If I wanted to do, for example, a pie chart, and let's find one here. Maybe I want to look at, ethnicity. And I just want to see, across our entire system, how, the different groups that we have, and see that viewed as a pie chart. And I can run that and be able to, capture that information. And if I wanted to, I can say, you know what, this is an important chart. I want to save this, and I want to save this to a dashboard, or I can create as many dashboards as I'd like, and I can just go ahead and do it right here. Now, once I do that, and I go back to, my dashboard view, you'll see here that I have, that ethnicity chart at the bottom. And from here, I can say, you know what, if I wanted to look at it as a bar chart or anything else, a pyramid chart, there's just different options here. I can export it as an image. Now I can use that in the presentation, if I wanted to. So this is, in this case, for example, this participant map, if we have, geographic data, we can capture that and be able to, drill down. And you can see in here, I think in Broward, you don't capture street addresses, but you capture city and state. So that's why you see just the bigger numbers, here. I'll show you for Miami in a second how that's a bit different because they capture street addresses. But so these three here, again, just a really quick overview of how your end users can go in, and they don't have to generate charts. You saw before, you can just generate tabular data and be able to export that to Excel or for anything else that you might need. I think that covers a lot in terms of, your entire database now becomes open to you. One of the other things that we added last year was the ability to, create your own custom fields at the participant level and the program level. I know, Roger, you're taking advantage of that. So that kind of goes back to our philosophy of, we want to build the tools to give you all the ability to customize and extend the platform for whatever you might need. In the past, in SAMIS 1.0 or in any other application you have, you would have to go to the developers and say, oh, we now need to capture date of birth. And they're going to have to say, okay, we're going to have to build that in a form. We're going to have to add, for every report that we have now, we need to go add that field. And that's all going to cost you money, and that's not the game we want to play. And most IT shops want to play that game. They want to, because it's about the churn. It's about, oh, I'm going to bill you for this, and you're going to need me to keep coming back. And not that we don't want to make money, but that's not the money we want to make. We want to make. We don't want to be in the business of building reports for you because you're better at that than we are. You know your data, and especially, for example, with Miami, and now we're doing it with the grants piece for Broward. You're building out your own data model and everything else. You're going to have the ability to know that better than anyone and be able to report on it than anyone. And lately we've been having a lot of providers come to us, like we've had, Robert, in the Eating Disorder Association, Mental Health Association in Palm Beach. In Miami now, it's Overtown and Urgent that are reached out to us, and Healthy Mothers, Healthy Babies as well too. These providers all need a tool to be able to create their own data model for input and be able to do reporting on. And so that's sort of where we're going with a lot of our tools, like what you guys have. And we're building a new module that we're kind of calling it the put Webauthor out of business. It's a module that's going to be called Flex that will allow you to build your own, sort of build your own SAMIS. In essence, right now we charge, if you look at this drop down here, we sort of charge by the module. Forms, BI, SAMIS. That's how, we put the work into that, we build it, and then we make that available, and that's how we sort of earn our way. Well, so the BI tool, we're essentially taking away any need for reporting for you to come back to us. And the Flex module is the next step now of building your own data infrastructure. Just like with SAMIS, you would build out, a module for SAMIS, and you'd have one maybe for programs where you put in your own fields, capture your own information, build your own for participants, and put all of those pieces. The BI tool is something that, it becomes one of the other modules that we have. We have, I think, 165 different modules that we've built over the past 20 plus years. And so any client coming in would have that ability, to use that. Any providers coming to us directly, we're including that with the Flex module so that they can build out their own system and have their own reporting. Yeah.
So Maury, a quick question to make sure I'm clear on how it works. So if I want to create two data sets for two different organizations, Boys and Girls Club, communities, and school, I would build the data source and hard code the SQL on the program ID and then set the user roles for Boys and Girls Club, and then they would get that data set on their dashboard, and I do the same for the other organization. Is that really the way it would work?
Yeah, we wouldn't want to do that, but yeah, that's how it would work by default. What we would prefer to do is say, you know what, we can build or show you how you can take advantage of the permission system already in place, so that you can take advantage of, okay, if I'm running this report and it's got program data, I can look up the permissions to make sure that I'm only seeing programs that I have access to. So that there's already that program model or permission model.
So it's fully controlled. So you write the SQL kind of generally, and then the permission shows a view of that's allowed.
Exactly. Yes. Yes.
Mario, isn't there a filter though that you can turn on in the data sets as well?
Yes. So within each data set, you have filters here. So you can, I can look at this data. Maybe I want to look at it by city or any of the fields that we have in here, by date or anything else. And I'll show you, another example of this in a second, of how we're taking the BI tool and taking some of those components and we want to integrate it back directly into SAMIS. So I'll show you that in a second. So these three, again, data sources would be, the administrators would create data sets, the users would then create, and then they customize them and add them to their dashboards. Even though I said all those bad things about reports, we know it's a necessary evil. And so, right now you have we brought over the reports from SAMIS 1.0, and we didn't do any rewrites or anything at all with them. But any reports going forward, we're using this reports tab within the BI tool. And we did one recently for Shawanda for the STAR system. But in here, if I wanted to look at Monty, your folks had wanted to have a dosage report that we created. Yeah. And so this idea is you can go in, put in a date range, filter by classifications, programs, activities, and then units, and it was supposed to go and show, or it's supposed to show how many participants achieved 5 units, 25, and 50. And if I just go and run this report, just to give you an idea of how it works, and I'll show you sort of on the design view, it takes usually like about 20 seconds or so to go through all of the data and return back a result set. So when it's running that report, so the report's ready, and now it comes back with this information here. So for every program, it's showing the activity, how many participants had over 5, how many had over 25, and how many had over 50. And if you wanted to, drill down into that, you can run now a second report that then would look at just that population of users. And
I have to say something. Mario built this report in a weekend when we had been waiting 3 years for another person to build it. Thank you, Mario. And it was so helpful. We got such good data out of this dosage report. Thank you.
You have to ask per hour, so.
Anything we do, we share.
Yeah. So, and then if you wanted to look at the 150 at that particular program and activity, then, we did another report here and then included sort of a heat map on a calendar view to see when they had that activity. Yeah. I know you didn't ask for it, but, sort of going back to this original report, I'm going to scare you here for a little bit and show you the design view. So this report, it has these different inputs, date range, date start, date end. We've got like the agency and program names. We've got activities. For activity, you can see here how you're configuring all of this without having to write any code at all directly in the browser. It has the activity lookup. And so if we get to the bottom here, this is sort of the meat of the report, where it's doing all of this logic. Now, obviously, SAMIS 1.0, you'd have to go to your developers to say, build me this report, and then you have no idea what was built. You have to just trust that it's returning that data. Well, now you have access directly to the raw source, You can modify it as you see fit. You know, for example, you wanted to add another category or another field, maybe race, ethnicity, or gender. You can just add that directly in here. You know, so then you don't have to kind of come back to us. So this is sort of just on the reporting tool how you can still achieve, you know, static reports as well as, you know, the data exploration. Now,